Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. I'm your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be joined by my co-host, Nesson writer Lauren Campbell today, but I was able to be joined by a very special guest. He's a writer for Primetime Sports Talk and BMV Sports. His name is Jamie Gatlin, and Jamie and I talk a little bit today about the spring training roster cuts that recently happened, which we saw Jaren Duran and Ryan Fitzgerald get optioned down to Worcester, as well as a few other players get cut, as well as Trevor Story returning to spring training. And then Jamie and I talk a little bit about a few guys that we're concerned about going into the season with it just less than 9 days away. Now let's get into this episode.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am here with a very special guest and a good friend of mine. He's a writer for Primetime Sports Talk and BMV Sports, Jamie Gatlin. So how are we doing today, Jamie?
Doing good. I'm ready for baseball to get started.
Seriously, man, it's 10 days away. You know, it was nice to see the Trevor Story jersey that the Red Sox put up on their Twitter account today. 10 days away. It's really crazy seeing how fast it's coming, how fast spring training is also flown by as well.
No, especially after the wait we had, it's gone by like it snapped the fingers.
Seriously, and you know, we saw some roster cuts happen a little bit a few days ago. So some guys who really came up big during the spring training, a guy like Ryan Fitzgerald became a fan favorite with the mullet, as well as super inspirational story as well. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look into it. You know, played indie ball. I believe he hit in the 230s in college ball as well as indie ball, and now he's up here over 16 up at bats, hitting .313, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs. That's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things you gotta love about spring training. You see guys like that just get more chances that they wouldn't normally. And, he's a guy that people know a lot about, and he's gonna be watched very closely. And if injuries hit, he's definitely be one of the first guys that the Sox call or at least think about.
I think so too. I mean, he's also got a lot of versatility. They were to play him multiple places around the depth chart, and we know that's what Chaim Bloom loves the most. But also another guy who's notable to mention who was sent down to Worcester specifically is Jaren Duran. We saw him over 18 up at bats, hit .333, 1 stolen base, but we saw a little bit of a bounce back from him, especially after a down debut that he had. Played a little bit over 30 games last season. Wasn't able to see MLB pitching that well, but something that I think was really cool to see, especially after reading the Chris Cotillo article that he did on him, was he was having fun playing baseball again. And also he was also using his strengths to his advantage, like his speed, as well as, some bunting a little bit here and there. So it was cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely someone that probably the most entertaining watching on the base pass, scoring from second. Shout out to Derek Fisher for helping with that one, but scoring from second on a fly ball. But he's a guy I'm going to look at a lot this year, especially just with that bounce back year. I feel like he's a little bit of a forgotten player in the outfield. But if he works on his game, then he could be back in Boston as soon as we know it.
I think so as well. Something that I saw Chris Henrik put on Beyond the Monster, and it was from the transaction log from MLB. They put him in as a second baseman. And I thought that was something that was very interesting because throughout this offseason, I've mentioned, even obviously before the Trevor Story signing, could we see Jaren Duran play a little bit second base? He played there a little bit in the minors as well as through college. Hasn't played there since 2019. Could have been an error, could have been a typo, but I just thought it was interesting.
Definitely. That'd be fun to see, especially with the outfield as crowded as it is. He's got to, try himself out at different spots to get playing time. But it's the part of the spring training when things get wild, and I wouldn't mind seeing him at second, in the future. Little double play action there with York or with Maya if they want to go really crazy.
Yeah, and we also saw Christian Arroyo play right field as well. Yeah, or 2 days ago, excuse me, and also we've also seen a little bit. We haven't seen it in game action specifically, but we've heard rumblings of Bobby Dalbec getting some time out there in left field as well as at second base. So I'm really excited for those guys. To show what they have. Obviously, like I mentioned, we saw Arroyo 2 days ago, but Dahlbeck specifically, I'm curious to see him in left field as well as the second base. But it's nice starting to see some of those guys who didn't really have, pinhold positions on the depth chart, getting the opportunity to play a lot of different positions to help their playing time.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Dahlbeck, especially with Cass is probably going to be here at some point this summer. I'm really interested to see how well Bobby starts with that in the back of his mind of how that pushes it going forward, and that will give the Sox a difficult decision to make come the trade deadline, depending on what they need.
Very true. And, I think with this versatility, it sort of there's still questions on what Bobby Dalbec's future looks like with the Red Sox. But, if he's able to find a place in one of these different positions, I think he can make his time here a lot longer, which would be really nice. Also a few guys who did get optioned down. And with all these roster cuts, they weren't a huge surprise. A lot of people were wondering to see, the two guys specifically like Jaren Duran and Ryan Fitzgerald, like I mentioned, if they could potentially make the cut, the last few cuts. But as we also saw, 28 guys are able to be on the roster starting the season until May 1st. We'll most likely see the Red Sox use a lot more pitchers due to the lack of ability for pitchers to really build up their bodies and stuff. But we also saw catchers Ronaldo Hernandez as well as Connor Wong get sent down. A few other guys notable, reliever Taylor Hall as well as Michael Feliz. And then two friends of the pod, Cole Cottom. You're also friends with Cole as well, wicked nice guy. As well as Zach Kelly also got signed to minor league camp. But Kelly's somebody that I wanted to talk about real quick because he made 3 appearances in spring training and all those 3 innings, only allowing 2 hits, 3 walks, 1 strikeout. But overall, with all the appearances that I saw Zach Kelly make, I think he's honestly very much destined to make his MLB debut, at least at some point in the 2022 season.
Yeah, he's a guy who impressed me a lot last year, and especially with how guys still have to build up their arms, their innings. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in Boston at some point soon with how creative they're going to have to be with that roster. But I agree with you. He definitely has the stuff to, make it in the majors. I feel like he's one of the relievers who was just on the cusp at the end of last year and who we're really going to see make a push at some point in the coming weeks.
Very true. And, it's been really interesting to see how Cora has really sort of spread out all these different pitchers throughout spring training. And, especially now that most of the guys have 2 games under their belts. One guy who I really was curious to see how he played going into spring training. He's right now currently the oldest guy in the major leagues. He beat Albert Pujols just by a little bit. That's Rich Hill. 5 innings, only allowing 3 hits, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, and he pitched on Sunday. And he really impressed me. 3 strikeouts, only allowing 1 hit over 1 inning. So I'm really curious to see how he does. Obviously, to start the season, but I think he's very much destined for that 5th spot.
Yeah, I feel like his impact could be really underestimated, especially with Paxton not coming back to the after the All-Star break. Sale's going to miss the first couple of weeks. I feel like he's a veteran presence who could really be big for that rotation, especially with his experience and the fact that he's pitched in Boston. This is like his 4th tour of duty. So he knows, how to pitch in front of the Fenway faithful, so he's not going to be a guy who's going to be fazed by that increased pressure.
Did you see that Jed Lowry went back to the Oakland A's?
I did. I thought it was funny how before that the A's had not signed anyone, and of course it's Lowry. He's like the Rich Hill of the Sox. I feel like every couple of years would be weird if he wasn't on the A's. So when I saw that, I was like, I wasn't surprised, and I kind of laughed at the same time, like this makes too much sense, and he hasn't played there for a year, so it's kind of like, was that moment that needed to happen?
I just had to mention that because both of those guys always find a way to those specific teams. It would have even been a little bit more funny if Lowry came back to Boston, but I can't get over his double flap helmets. I just can't get over it. It reminds me too much of, because I feel like you only have that in the minor leagues. You don't see a lot of major league players other than, I guess, Shane Victorino. That comes to mind, who usually does that.
Exactly. He's probably hit like 280 this year, be a fringe all-star.
Yeah.
Lowry's going to have a good year if he signs in Oakland.
Very true. Very true. I hope that you are enjoying today's episode, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about Athletic Greens. And this is something that I use literally every single day because it's a great way to not only help your gut health, but it optimizes you to have more energy, optimize your immune system. And I'm always a person who hated really taking pills, vitamins, and Athletic Greens is something where it takes something all in one, puts it into one scoop. You put it in an 8 to 12 ounce cup every single day. And it's something that you take before you even start eating. And it's a great way to not only help you get appetite, but it's also really good for you. And this is something that I have been using for around 2 weeks so far, and I love it. And, it comes in this little bottle. It's greenish, doesn't really look that good at the start of it, but it honestly tastes super good. And it's also really good for you. And also keep in mind that it's a little bit of a tropical taste. It's really nice to wake up into the morning with. And like I mentioned, it's one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens. You're essentially absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and it's a great blend to not only help with your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, but also your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. One thing that I like about it is that it's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. And the main thing that helps me the most is that it helps me get better sleep quality and also recovery. And something that we talk a lot about on this podcast is your mental health. So it supports mental clarity, alertness, and it's one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with the constant production and also third-party testing, which is always very, very important. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu season and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every single day. That's it. There's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you 1 free year supply of immune supporting vitamin D in 5 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health. But I greatly appreciate everybody making that Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. And now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available. Another guy who I was excited to see that he's finally going to be announced to be in the rotation, but his performances made me a little bit nervous over his 2 games that he has pitched, and that's Tanner Hauck. He's somebody who I was hoping and praying would be, a breakout candidate, somebody who's still very young, has a lot of room to develop, a lot of room to grow, but over 5 innings, allowing 3 hits, 4 earned runs. And the one kicker that it's just making me nervous going into the season now that he has a rotation spot is 8 walks over 6 strikeouts. And that's something that, you could have thought that you might have seen just from guys not being able to really build up their arms and being able to have tons of practice before games started. But what's your thoughts on those 8 walks from Tanner Houck?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's definitely stood out to me. I mean, we've seen it when he's been, in the majors before, how that pitch count and pitching deep into the games has been the one thing that's kept him out of having, a secure spot. I feel like especially with how they're going to use arms early on, he can't really afford that just because Core's not going to be afraid to go to the bullpen or, mix it up in the rotation if he has to. So keeping the walks down, keep the home runs down will be key early on. So, I mean, it's going to be on him because that's kind of where they're at. He's kind of already had his trial period. So it's going to be up to him to make those step forward and show that he can make those adjustments, especially with, guys already have the rotation to start this season as it is.
Very true. That's the one big question, especially going into the season. What will this rotation really look like? How are they going to use everybody? I could potentially see games where it's like half and half, um, half Rich Hill, half Michael Waka, half Tanner Hauck, half Garrett Whitlock. They have that ability, which is very nice. And especially with some of the newly signed guys like Matt Strom as well as Jake Diekman, the ability to go more than one singular inning is going to be huge for them, especially before the season starts.
Yeah, I feel like, especially this year, I feel a lot more confident in that group of guys than, who they brought in last year, which I feel like shows how much better the depth is, and which will definitely help them. So it's something I'm looking forward to, how Core mixes and matches those rotations, especially, just based on matchups in that first month and a half while everyone's getting up to speed.
Very true. And I think that's going to be something where fans need to be patient. When the season starts, you can't expect some of these pitchers to come out and look like they're in midseason form. Like they're still starting to build up, and being able to have that time is so crucial for some of these guys' arms, for some of their developmentals. But one person who has really made me nervous with how he's looked, especially with him having a little bit of a bigger role this season, is Sawamura. And he didn't fully live up to expectations from last year, but at the same time, you see that a lot where guys come overseas, don't fully live up to the full potential of what you might have seen over in whatever respective country that they started in. But, I mean, especially what we saw on Sunday, allowing 3 hits with a blown save with 5 earned runs. And, that's just not something that you want to see, especially in spring training, but in a real game, in a real situation where he could potentially blow a game up within just 1 inning.
Yeah, I mean, he's got him looking at a lot this year because there were some instances last year where I can't give him the benefit of the doubt just because he was adjusting, to the majors, to playing in a different country. And then this year, it's going to be different just because this is his second year. They're definitely going to need him, especially in those later innings. I'm just going to see if he can kind of be the pitcher we expect him to be, because I feel like if he can reach that potential, he's definitely could be like the 7th, 8th inning guy and take some pressure off of Barnes. And if that doesn't happen, they have guys who can step up, but at the same time, that's going to be kind of a big hole to fill if he can't continue to improve his game. And, the struggles that you mentioned that have come up in spring training follow him into the regular season.
Very true. And like another guy who was a little bit down last year, but I'm really hoping that we see him really pitch his full potential. He's looked pretty good so far this spring training. Is Darwin Hernandez. He's a guy who we saw him have a lot of control issues, but over 2 3/3, only 2 walks. For the most part, you would see him probably walk 2 to 3 guys every single inning that he would pitch. But if he's able to come up with a big role as well as be a clutch pitcher in big situations, that's all Sox fans want. They don't want to be super duper nervous when they see Darwin Hernandez coming in, thinking that he's gonna walk 2 to 3 guys, potentially blow this game wide open. But he's looked really good, and he's still really young and has the ability to develop into something really good for him too.
Yeah, he's like my sneaky. If I had a pick, he'd be my sneaky reliever for the Sox, just because his stuff, can be electric just with reaching triple digits. I feel like he can be the most maddening and most enjoyable pitcher to watch, whether, if he's walking people or striking people out. And like you said, if he can control that, he can be a big piece of this bullpen. And he's someone that, I've seen they've worked him out in multiple innings or stretching out his endurance. And that could be huge early on in the season if you can have a guy like him that can throw 100 and you can trust that he can control it for 2 innings and just shorten that gap from the starter to the closer spot.
Very true. And, we could see him be slotted into that 7th inning position. And, I've been relatively impressed with, how most of the bullpen guys have performed so far this spring training. One guy who, I always honestly forget that he's on the team is Austin Davis, obviously coming over from the Pirates. in that Michael Chavis deal. But I mean, over 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. He's a guy who's going to be a great middle reliever for a bullpen who's going to need every reliable arm possible.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I have a little bit of a Pirates fandom in me. So when the Sox made that trade, it's a little questionable just watching some of the outings he put together in Pittsburgh. But he was a great addition. I feel like down the stretch he was a solid arm. That's continued in the spring, and he could just be. He's not going to be a high leverage guy, but I feel like he could be kind of perfect, like sixth inning, type of arm.
Very true. And, as I mentioned at the start, like we're 9 days away. So, we're starting to see some guys getting ready for that season, starting to build up their bodies, get their timing right. One guy who we saw return to spring training on Monday is the new Red Sox second baseman, Trevor Story, after leaving to be with his family for the first for the birth of his first child. And we saw him do a little bit of playing a little bit of simulated game, inter squad. Nathan Eovaldi was on the bump, and he did strike out his first up at bat. But that's something that you kind of expect. It's his first live action in a Red Sox uniform. He didn't really talk about too much, or hasn't really come out too much about, some of the training that he did prior to spring training. How much live action has he actually gotten? I wouldn't be surprised if, he was doing cage work or live pitching, but, who knows how much he's been really in a game scenario. So it was also nice to see in his second up at bat, rope a triple, opposite field triple off of Eovaldi. And I don't know about you, watching that video on Twitter, first thought that came to mind is he made that look way too easy.
Oh, I was scrolling when I saw that on my phone. I was like, "This is the content I didn't know I needed, but I needed."
Exactly.
Like you said, he made that look so easy. It was such a smooth swing, especially seeing that in a Red Sox uniform. And I think it's good too that it came off a pitcher of like Evaldi. Wasn't off a rookie or someone who's just kind of in camp to get working. And was off one of the best pitchers in the league, who obviously he's not up to mid-season form, but like you said, seeing that so soon after he came back from having some time off was really good to see.
Very true. And I think that's going to be the number one thing is being able to get his timing right, get him back, for opening day, like game ready sort of form. I think that's obviously what the staff is hoping to get him ready for, with, like I mentioned, nine days left until opening day. But we also saw our Red Sox top prospect, Marcelo Meyer, rope a home run off of Evaldi. And, I just can't get enough of his swing. It's so smooth and nice.
Oh, I can't either. I mean, think about the fact that he was in high school this time last year, and then you fast forward a year, and
Seriously.
he's just hitting homers off of Aldi because he can. I mean, the kid has a bright future, and I feel like, especially in spring training, every time you hear something about him, it's something positive, whether it's a highlight or him interacting with players. I know he posted a video of a bunch of minor leaguers, kind of just like hanging out a couple days ago, showing the chemistry that Bloom is building in the minors. It's just so good to see as a prospect, that high pedigree, and all the positive news that's coming out about him, whether it's him crushing baseballs or just how he is able to interact with other people in camp.
Very true. Couldn't agree more. And we saw him in his first sort of game action with the Sox. It was nice that it happened sort of during the night game. I don't know. It just gave me that night baseball sort of feel. It made me feel like I was watching, quite honestly, his MLB debut in that Sox uniform. And made it look so easy. Just drawing a walk, having a great eye, and it just makes me so excited for how much he's going to be able to develop this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts somewhere in Salem or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, to me, what stood out the most about camp is the patience he showed and that at bat for someone his age to not chase any pitches and just not chase anything in the dirt on the outside and take a walk. That was really impressive to see.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And you mentioned, us not expecting Trevor Story to be in midseason form, but somebody who looks like he's in midseason form is Rafael Devers, hitting 2 bombs on Saturday, and he's looking so good up at the plate. All you see on Twitter, and all I think about anytime I see him, make those insane hits, as well as just do anything magical that he does on the baseball field, is when is that extension happening?
I don't know. I mean, especially looking at what he did in the playoffs when he was hurt, and then seeing him, healthy in spring training, it's going to be a massive extension when it comes. I really think they will sign him just because of what he means to the franchise and the numbers he will put up if he goes somewhere else are just going to be insane, whether it's in Boston or wherever it is. But I think that's a contract they get done just because we've said it that they wouldn't let Mookie walk. And obviously we all know how that happened, but you just can't let a guy of that caliber walk. And I think Bloom did show a little bit with the Story signing that he is willing to, sign a big contract when it's the right player. And I feel like Devers definitely falls under that category for them.
Very true. Couldn't agree more. And I'm super excited to see. Obviously, now with those roster cuts that did just happen a few days ago, now the Sox are just able to fully focus on getting everybody who is going to be on this 26, 28 man roster ready and prepared to dominate to start the season. And I figured I would end this just with a little bit of an interesting topic. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. So I went back up to Plymouth State this past weekend to see some friends. It was probably going to be the last time I was able to go up to my former college and still actually know people up there without feeling a little bit weird. For people who don't know, I just graduated last May, but it was funny because I was in a few parties. I was at the bar and every single time I saw somebody with a Yankees hat on, I had to just walk right up to them. It didn't matter if I was at the bar or if I was in a party. I just tapped him on the shoulder and I just said, "Hey, go Sox." And it was so funny to see their reaction of it. It was so funny to because I said it in a such lighthearted way, you know what I mean, that it wasn't gonna start any BS or something like that. But I just had to, and I had a few friends tap me and be like, "No, bro, stop." But I'm just like, I just have to do it. So I was curious if when you see somebody with a Yankees hat on, do you? I'm not asking if that's what you immediately do, or is that just what you think? Is you're like, oh god, I hate the Yankees, or you're just like, go Sox?
Just probably more like 50-50. I feel like definitely goes. It depends, if they're an all-out Yankees gear, jersey, hat, everything. That's where I'm not. That's where I'm like, Yankees suck. But if they're just wearing their jersey, I'll go up to them and be sarcastic about it because I feel like it's like how you have fun with the game. Because most of the time they're not going to say something unless they're really hardos, and that's a whole nother story. But time to time, I do say that.
Yeah, it's happened to me a few times to where a guy would try and get into an argument with me, and I'm just like, bro, come on. We're talking about this lightheartedly. There's no right and wrong. With the Sox and the Yankees are the two most storied franchises in the league. And I think it's always interesting, to see those interactions and see how they work out. But I always say at the end of the day, I'm like, quite honestly, you could probably say the same thing about David Ortiz. Is I respect the hell out of Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, but I just thought it was so funny that was my initial reaction. I just gotta let him know, go Sox.
I've done that. I do that with when I was in Denver a couple months ago. I saw someone rocking a Pats jersey, and I was like, "That's my guy."
Exactly.
It's like, you're a bold man for wearing that in the middle of Colorado, but I respect you, sir.
You gotta let them know.
Right.
But really appreciate you taking the time tonight, Jamie. And for all the people who want to go out and support you, check out your articles. For people who haven't seen Jamie's stuff yet, definitely go and check it out. He does a great job with not only interviewing players, talking about some of the most biggest storylines within sports as well as in the Boston sports community. He does a great job, puts his personality into it, very informative. So for people who want to check out that stuff, where can they find it?
So you can find it on my Twitter, which is my first name, last name, the number 17. We go on Prime Time as well, and we got some fun things going on with both those sites, and some freelance stuff I'm working on, and some other more adulty, I guess you could say it, phrase it, world. So a lot of fun updates coming to Twitter soon, I guess.
Perfect, man. Yeah, everybody go and support the hell out of Jamie. He's a great friend of mine, great person, does a very good job at what he does within sports. Definitely go and check out his stuff. But really appreciate you taking the time tonight. And I've been ending these, and I think I'm going to end all of them maybe for the rest of the season. But let's go Sox. I hope that you did enjoy this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. We are so excited for this season to start, and we're going to be doing everything that we can over the next 2 weeks to get you guys as ready as possible for the Red Sox to start with some really fun guests, as well as some really fun topics that we do have planned. So definitely make sure, if you're not yet, subscribe on whatever audio platform that you are listening to, or on YouTube, because we also post the video version over there, so you don't miss an episode, because we post one Monday through Friday. But I greatly appreciate everybody making that Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. It's available and free wherever you get your podcasts. And something else that's free and available wherever you get your podcasts is all the other amazing Locked On podcasts on the network. You can go over and check out Locked On Astros, Locked On Yankees, Locked On A's, Locked On Orioles, Locked On Blue Jays. They also got them for the NFL, MLB, as well as college. And for those of you that don't know, the Locked On Network is the best place for you to get all your sports information. But we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to follow Locked On Red Sox on Twitter so you never miss Red Sox content every single day that we post over there, as well as we try to get you guys involved in every single episode. So we post a little thing before every episode to try and get you guys involved, whether it's with an interview, whether it's with a topic, because we want to hear your guys' thoughts and involve you in every single episode to make this the most fan-engaging Red Sox podcast that there is out there. Also follow myself on Twitter. It's at Jake Iggy, as well as my co-host, Nesson writer Lauren Campbell. But that is it for tonight. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. And as I've said with all these other episodes that I've done solo, take care of yourself, love yourself, take some time to be proud of yourself for how far you have come. Don't take life too seriously. Remember that everything happens for a reason. Live in the moment and live every second like it's your last. And lastly, let's go Sox. Peace.